Welcome to the Crime Report with Ron Chinzer. I'm Ron Chinzer, and I'm a former 20-year police veteran, public safety advocate, and someone who believes Canadians deserve the truth. Now, today's episode isn't easy, but it's necessary. We're going to talk about some disturbing trends that every Canadian should know about. Things that aren't getting major headlines, but are absolutely affecting your safety and your community. Now, some of the things we're going to cover today, they're going to blow your mind. Dangerous offenders walking free by cutting off GPS monitors, a massive police undercover sting that exposed over 1,100 suspected child sex predators, a repeat sexual offender in Guelph who keeps getting released, hundreds of criminals dodging deportation across the country, being Canada, and a disturbing hate threat case in Newmarket with minimal punishment upon conviction. That's not the only thing. We're also going to be talking about how our fentanyl crisis is now claiming the lives of babies. Now, before we dive in, I want to thank you for being here. And if you want to help support real journalism that doesn't hide from the truth, go to www.junonews.com/Ron and subscribe. You'll save 20% off of your subscription, and you'll help us keep telling stories that matter. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with something that should be setting off alarm bells across Canada. High-risk offenders removing their GPS ankle monitors and vanishing. These monitors are court-ordered. They're supposed to be a digital leash for people out on bail, but here's the truth. They're not working. We have 3 cases. Case number 1, Prabjit Singh, just 21 years old, was facing serious charges involving a minor in Edmonton. He was released under GPS monitoring, but on July 20th, he cut it off, and he went missing from Sherwood Park, Alberta, and he just disappeared. Now, police believe he may be trying to flee to India. His court date was on July 29th, but he never showed up. Case number 2, Ryan Vandenagger, a convicted serial sex offender. He had 3 victims over 3 years. On July 24th, he failed to show up to court in Newmarket, Ontario. He was sentenced in absentia to 7 years in prison, but he's gone. He was last seen near Collingwood, and people think he's in a black Honda Civic. And case number 3, Husam Deher, 28, a UK national in Toronto, out on bail for assault causing bodily harm. Like the others, he cut his GPS monitoring on July 27th, and he disappeared. Now he's facing even more charges. Now, here's the issue. These devices, they don't stop anybody. They don't prevent harm. They don't lock anyone up. And there's no one watching in real time. If a judge thinks a person needs electronic monitoring, that should be a huge red flag. They probably shouldn't be released at all. So what do? We need new rules. No GPS bail for serious, violent, or sexual offenders. Cut the monitor. We're going to treat it like you've escaped prison. Immediate nationwide warrants if you cut your monitor, because this is about public safety, not convenience. Now let's go to Peel Region. An 11-day operation called Project Juno uncovered something truly horrifying. Ontario has a massive hidden demand for child exploitation. Police posted a decoy ad online pretending to be a minor offering sex. Over 1,100 people responded. That's not a typo. 1,100 people responded. 1,100 people reached out thinking they were contacting a child for sexual purposes. Every day, investigators were swamped with over 100 messages. They couldn't even keep up to the messages. From that, 85 arrests were made and 165 charges laid across the province of Ontario. Who were they? Teachers, students, retirees, fathers, even a guy who left his own child home alone to go meet a teenager with the intent of having sex. 2 officers were assaulted. 1 suspect was already wanted for breaching his conditions when police did their major sting in their busts. Now, this operation included Peel, Toronto, OPP, Halton, Durham, York, a full team effort. And here's the thing, there was no real victim. It was a fake profile, but the intent, absolutely real. This sting was backed by the Supreme Court ruling allowing proactive undercover work to be done to stop these child predators before a real child was harmed. Now, here's what needs to happen going forward. We need more resources for these sting units. We need ongoing public education. We absolutely need stronger sentencing for attempted child exploitation, because these 1,100 people didn't just magically appear. They've always been here. We just started to finally catch them looking. Now we go to Guelph. Madani Johan, 36, has sexually assaulted a woman in public. Now we go to Guelph. Madani Johans, 36, has sexually assaulted women in public. He's been arrested multiple times. Police call him a high-risk offender. But guess what? He's been released 3 times in a single year. In August of 2024, released. March 1st, 2025, released again. By March 8th, he violated conditions. On July 24th, 2025, released again. by July 25th, arrested again for 4 new breaches and harassment. This isn't speculation. Cameras caught him. Police tracked him. He refused to attend bail hearings. Still, he was released again and again. This is a failure of catch and release in real time. He's not even a citizen, and yet he's repeatedly let back into the community. Fixes for this problem that's so evident everybody's shaking their head at it? Well, no bail for high-risk repeat offenders. Immigration review after violent crimes for those that aren't Canadian citizens. Breach your bail, you should be back in custody. No second chance. Because right now, this man's freedom keeps putting others at risk. Let's talk immigration and public safety. According to the CBSA, 599 criminal foreign nationals set for deportation have vanished, just disappeared, many of them convicted of serious crimes like sexual assault. Of those 599, 431 are convicted of crimes with 10-year sentences. 315, they've been missing for over 3 years. We're not talking about paperwork issues. These are serious, dangerous people who are supposed to be deported. The question becomes, how did this happen? Well, they get appeals. The process drags on, and in the meantime, they're released with limited tracking. Some cut off the monitors, some use fake names, some hide in communities that are sympathetic towards them. The CBSA used to run a wanted page that was taken down in 2023. Why? Because someone didn't want people to know who was missing. Fixes? Well, let's reinstate public alerts for missing deportees. Let's secure detention for high-risk offenders. And let's streamline appeals for serious crimes. Let's invest in biometric identification tracking because we can't deport criminals that we can't find. Let's move to Newmarket in 2024. Waisuddin Akbari, a local business owner, told a BMW service employee he would plant a bomb in every synagogue in Toronto and kill as many Jews as possible. He said he'd film it and post it online. He called Jewish people cockroaches and cancer. Now, he was arrested, convicted of uttering threats, and sentenced in July of 2025. What was the result of the conviction? 60 days, house arrest, no jail. Now, the Crown prosecutor wanted 4 to 6 months in jail. The defense wanted no conviction. Now, the judge chose to go to the middle ground, house arrest, probation, and mandatory anti-bias education. But the victims, they were terrified, and rightfully so. The Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center said the threats created profound and pervasive fear within their community. There's no evidence of weapons, no bomb plot, but does that excuse violent hate speech that targets entire communities? This case proves we need stronger sentencing for hate threats, hate-specific penalties that reflect community fear, mandatory education for rehabilitation, if that's even going to help in this particular case, because the freedom of speech doesn't give you the freedom to terrorize multiple communities, and we've seen this across the country. And finally, the most devastating story of all. Canada's fentanyl crisis is now killing babies. A Western University study found that from 2017 to 2021, 10 children under 10 died from opioid poisoning in Ontario. Most were toddlers, the youngest a 9-month-old. Now that's doubled the previous 4-year period. Every single child had previous contact with child protection services, and police were involved in most cases, but no one intervened in time. One of them was Amelia, a 20-month-old in Kitchener. She died after ingesting carfentanil, 100 times stronger than fentanyl, left in a zipper pocket beside her. Since 2021, 16 more children in Ontario have died. Alberta reported 11 toddler deaths. The crisis is absolutely growing in the country. Now, why is this happening? Because trace amounts of fentanyl can kill children, and these drugs are being left in places babies sleep or play by their parents or caregivers that are addicted. So what are the potential fixes for something like this? Well, there should be mandatory safety checks if drugs are present in homes with kids. Sadly, naloxone in every household where substance use is known may save a life, and training and counseling for at-risk parents. Early detection tools for social workers would be highly beneficial. And Dr. Michael Reeder, the lead author of the study, said, societies are being judged by how they take care of their kids, and this is not a good judgment on us. We're failing children in the most preventable way possible. Now, Canada, we just went over 6 devastating stories that are impacting all parts of Canada, from the West Coast to the East Coast. Our federal election ended in April of 2025, this year, just several months ago, and one of the top issues in the country Was crime something that was carried through? Now, notably, our current Liberal government during that election rarely spoke about crime. They only gave you little tidbits that we're going to do what we can to fix it, was somewhat of their line. They never wanted to acknowledge that a lot of this can be sourced back to 2019 with the introduction of Bill C-75, or now infamously known catch and release bail policies in Canada. And sadly, since April, since the election where Canada made their votes and made their choice, we expected this issue to be a topical issue that was addressed immediately, not just because it made sense for Canadians, but because this entire election was surrounded by the threat of tariffs, a essentially existential threat to Canada. These tariffs were going to cause major problems for us. And the source of those tariffs from the United States had to do with the lack of border security and the growing fentanyl crisis in our country. I mean, just this week and in this episode here, we're talking about fentanyl killing kids in Canada, and this being one of the leading drivers of death in the most preventable way in the country. And just today, August 1st, we get news that the tariffs have increased in Canada, not from 25%, but to 35%, citing our lack of safety, citing our lack of taking on the serious problems that we have in this country. And what has our government done during this time? During the last couple months, where there has been more and more victims of heinous, repeat violent offenders, more and more exposure of serious sexual predators and assaulters, more and more exposure of people going after our children, continuing to break into our homes with violence and weapons, stealing our cars, hurting us. We've seen just a huge degradation within this country, and there's been almost zero attention paid to it, almost neglectful. And what we're suffering now is all of us. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor. It doesn't matter if you are an entrepreneur or you're a public service employee. Everybody feels the threats that we see in our headlines, and all those become adopted experiences because all of us can recognize that it could be any of us, which is probably the most terrifying thing you can have. Now, over the last couple months, I've spoken to many frontline police officers, many high-ranking police officers who unanimously agree that there's no hope in the future. I cannot tell you the number of messages I get online from people like yourself, from other first responders, from good community members who are losing hope that there's any potential fix to this issue. And the reason why it's such a big issue is it doesn't matter if you have $1 billion or you have $0. Something that we all connect on is the lack of safety and security. The second you lose that, your life changes 24 hours a day. When you don't have the safety and security of your own home, your own community, your own neighborhood, look at how much mental attention you're paying attention to that. It takes up and occupies a bunch of your brain space. You get worried about having your kids go to their sports, going to play with their friends, going out late at night when you live in probably a great community. However, social media, headlines, news, independent media are now bringing to light things that were previously potentially suppressed. And for all of us, that's when we look at these stories and we all scratch our head and say, how was this person allowed to be on bail? How was this person convicted? And what's most shocking in the last month has been what a lot of people, both in law enforcement, both in the justice system administration, and us normal Canadians look at and say, well, why are there two rules within our legal system? Why is it for serious violent offenders? Why is it for people whose priorities are their immigration into Canada and their citizenship? Why is it that they get one aspect of the law, but Canadians who are exercising their rights, Canadians who have made mistakes, Canadians who have tried to do what's right, are getting the harshest form of punishment? This dichotomy, this in perspective, this look at what are we going to do with our system impacts us all. And now we're turning into a country that Canadians don't recognize. And I could tell you from all of the police officers I speak to across the country, I'm saddened to hear that many of them are considering moving on to a different career. And the saddest part is probably the best cops that I know. They just have lost the purpose of doing their job. Because like you, most people that do really well at what they do believe in what they're doing. Police officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors, nurses, that entire operation, they believe in the same thing and they're driven by it. But when you have the best of the best in our country, doing what they can to protect us, saying that we're thinking of leaving our profession because our profession has turned into a revolving door system, we have a problem in Canada that I think is much larger than what people think. And with the announcement of the tariff increases today, We're going to see a destruction, I'll say, and I'll use that word, of our local economy. There's almost this falsehood from our Prime Minister that Canadians are going to pull up their bootstraps and just get to work in an entrepreneurship environment that doesn't benefit the entrepreneur. Who does this benefit, though? This benefits big corporations, big organizations that have the capital and the assets to be able to operate in an environment like this where business is heavy. The reason I bring that up is because public safety and economic development are brother and sister. We've seen the obvious degradation of public safety in the country, and we're going to see the next degradation being the economic environment. This is turning us into a country where the middle class is going to be eroded, and we're going to have the haves and the have-nots. And the biggest indicator that if you want to see that right now happening in your community, I want you to look at your community and ask yourself, do you have private security? Is your house now fortified to protect yourself? Because you are part of the haves if that's the case. And who are the have-nots? Everybody else who doesn't. That's the beginning of the dissolving of the middle class, which should be concerning for everybody, because we always need a bridge and a pathway to be able to move up. That's our show, Canada. You've just heard what many won't talk about, the hard truth about Canada's justice system, its failures, and what we can do to fix it. I'm Ron Chinzer, and thank you for watching The Crime Report. If you believe in the stories we're telling, support our work. Visit www.junonews.com/Ron and subscribe. You'll save 20%, and more importantly, you'll help keep public safety journalism alive in Canada. Stay informed and stay safe.